On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, the Four Nations final is here, the one we've all been waiting for, what to expect from that. And then you get a day off, and it's right back out on the ice for the Avalanche. Back-to-back games on the weekend. It's going to be a busy time. Let's talk about it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. If you want to join in the conversation, join our subtext. Link to that's in the show notes below. When you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. We'll get our subtext people's thoughts. Continue some mid-season grades, a couple more of those to go. We are doing Val Nichushkin. We are doing Logan O'Connor. And we're going to do Marty Necas. He's only played 8 games for them, but it's been an eventful 8 games. So we usually don't do that. There's someone that's that new. But we're going to do it because it's our show.
That's right. You can't tell us no.
Exactly.
And there's a lot to when it comes to the stacking, because everybody after that trade did a lot of what does he compare to 96? I think it's a good conversation to have at like how are we doing?
Yeah. So we'll get to that a little bit later. And of course, the Avalanche right back at it. They went into the break on a 2-game back-to-back road. Well, I mean, it was a longer road trip, but back-to-back games on the road, and they are starting back-to-back on the road as well, because NHL schedules are so fond of the Avalanche right now. So, but where we're going to start is, of course, with the Four Nations final. It is palpable, Kyle. Like, hockey is in like the bloodstream right now of really. It's always in Canada's bloodstream, but you need moments where it is for the United States to kind of like take notice. They are. So we've been kind of following the ratings for this all along, and they have gradually increased over the course of this thing. And because this is the final that everybody wants to see, that is one thing I am looking forward to seeing is what the ratings for the final brings. But overall, I'm just looking forward to this game, just because I think this is just going to be a fantastic game.
This is a fever dream, honestly, for hockey fans. Like, not only did the NHL knock it out of the park with this tournament, like you answer the question to the All-Star game, and that's one thing. But not only did they do that, they put hockey front and center in the living rooms of everybody in the United States, to the level that it's now being talked about as the gold standard on ESPN on how to do things, where other sports are being being called into question on, like, you saw PK talking about like the All-Star game.
It was awesome, by the way.
It was amazing, wonderful. But like, if you would have told me this comparison is being made on air on like ESPN,
I mean, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
It's just the fact that, one, the NHL is being talked about. 2, the passion, and it's like a commercial for the league, where your typical NFL, NBA, MLB fan that just turns it on to watch the debate, you never hear about the NHL. And now you hear about it as this bold, front-running sport that you're like, am I missing out on this? And we see the ratings so far. I'm very curious with all of the hype that is being generated, to where the Eiffel Tower and the CN building are already lit up in anticipation for this event. Like, this feels monumental, and I can't wait to see how many eyes are attracted to this final.
I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, because I can do that when I talk about ESPN and their coverage of hockey. But yeah, that thing that I retweeted out, it's been out there. PK was on that Get Up morning show and just laid it out there. He did such a good job of, how like the players are the ones who have made this. And the player, literally, like, from going to the league saying, like, we want to play best on best. We haven't done it in so long. come up with something. This is what the league came up with. And not only the players do that, like they went out and are putting in the effort. And they're not treating this as an all-star game. And PK goes on this great rant about how the NBA, like, what are they playing for? They're not playing for money anymore because they got plenty of that. What are they playing for? And that was my issue with the whole ESPN thing, was because ESPN has to talk about it. Why? Because it is getting traction. The Four Nations has got traction. It's got people's attention. So now ESPN has to kind of pivot, and they have no choice but to talk about it. But how they talked about it was, how could the NBA benefit off of what the NHL is doing, which drives me crazy. Just bring PK on, talk about the Four Nations, talk about how great it's doing, talk about Canada versus USA. And maybe they did over the course of the full time he was on there. I saw that segment. So maybe if he did talk about it, then good for them. But the fact that that's what he was brought on there to do, and other people were on. They had two other people that were part of that segment who were NBA guys. And it's like, that's how they're going to talk about the NHL and the Four Nations tournament, is should the NBA do that? And I get that's a conversation, but come on. Like,
there is a little backstory to this, because I know you probably didn't. The All-Star game for the NBA, their panelists that they had for the All-Star weekend consisted of one Draymond Green, who on the panelist show, every time the camera went to him, was openly trashing on national television the state of the NBA that he belongs to and their All-Star game, where he said, why are we playing this game against Rising Stars? Why is it All-Stars versus Rising Stars? He said, and LeBron backed out right before the game. And they're talking about, even Charles Barkley said that was just occupying an all-star spot that could have went to somebody else who wanted that. It was the conversation. It had nothing to do with the All-Star game, where even the commentary during the All-Star game was, how can we fix to where Charles Barkley is just lamenting the generations before him or after him on degrading the quality of product that the NBA has, to where I have never seen a sport be so critical of itself openly during a game, during a broadcast, during everything on the panel, to where I'm like, what is going on with this sport? And then on the flip, you watch the NHL putting on this Four Nations, and it's the best thing that has happened in sports in handling these exhibitions in quite some time. So there's a huge power shift when it comes to the NHL, and I never in a million years thought I would see the NHL finally strike it, and it's honestly the perfect time.
Well, you mentioned the LeBron thing. I did hear about that and how he took it off, and that's something that PK brought up. It was like, how are you going to get NBA guys to care? Like, the NHL guys are going all out. I mean, the first 9 seconds of the first US Canada is well documented. People are just talking about that nonstop right now. How are you going to get NBA players, if you do change up the format? How are you going to get them to care and go all out for a 2-week tournament, something like the NHL is doing? And that's the other part of it, is I feel like the NHL has done things like this before and are kind of at the forefront of changing things up. Like, this is a good example of that. When they did the fantasy draft for an all-star game, like, they were one of the first ones to do that. And then other leagues pick up on it, and then the NHL just gets pushed aside. And I just feel like they don't get given enough credit for doing something like that. So the NBA will pick up something like this, and then everybody's going to be like, "Oh, the NBA is such a genius league for changing things up." And it's like, well, they got the idea from the NHL. Like a lot of leagues out there do,
and
they do.
And it's interesting to be in a spot that the NHL, and with all the complaints, we talked a couple weeks ago about Gary Bettman's retirement, what that's going to look like in the state of hockey. And you see the PWHL thriving. You see the NHL thriving. I never thought you would see the NHL take a step back. We are in a healthy league. Sure. We're no longer locked out every other CBA. We're not on Outdoor Life Network.
Yep.
You're on the ESPN Plus family of networks. You're getting animated games to, show it to younger demographics. Like the NHL is doing a lot of the right things, and I think all of this is a good celebration of not just the quality of hockey representing your country, but just the state of the game currently in the league. It's in one of the better places I can remember since probably the 90s when it was the coolest game on earth, pun intended.
I want to say it was Money Puck that put up a Sports Illustrated cover from the mid 90s where it was like split. The front cover was split, hockey on the top, NBA on the bottom, and the headline was like, why is the NHL so hot and the NBA is not?
Wow.
Another time.
Wow.
Was another time. But we are flipped on that right now. It just shows you how things have gone. But could this be something that catapults and continues for the NHL? It remains to be seen. But I think it's good that this is happening with, and now you have the playoffs right around the corner and you have the Olympics a year away. That brings people back around to hockey. So it came at the perfect time. Go ahead.
And it's wonderful. Like you were talking about, like the scheduling is weird for the NHL. Like I was kind of suspect on this as well, but with all these new eyeballs coming to the game and now regular season hockey resumes this weekend, how interesting is it? Just a couple weeks, you have the trade deadline. And that's always a very exciting thing in sports. So you get all these new fans in and they get to witness a trade deadline and all the moves that can happen in hockey. Like you can really make really curate some excitement and get some lifelong fans in just those moments.
Yeah. And the last bit I'll say on the ESPN thing, then we'll get into the game and some predictions. Obviously, that's the only NHL game going on in the NBA, and that game is on ESPN. There's 9 NBA games that day too, and we all know how ESPN loves their NBA, and they have to push it aside for a night. I'm so praying that the ratings for this are just off the charts.
Yeah,
they were really good for first time around, and that was not for the championship. This one is. Let's see where it goes.
Well, the NBA is bleeding ratings, so it's a perfect storm for the NHL. Oh yeah, it's a bad year.
Well, what do you think for this game? Like, you have Cale Makar, who is back for this game. The U.S. seems to have a plethora of injuries right now. The whole Charlie McAvoy thing is just
and Quinn Hughes is hurt.
Well, I mean, he's been hurt, but
he's ruled out.
He could play. There's got to be another injury, I think, or what's the latest? That seems to be changing by the hour.
Quinn Hughes has been ruled out.
Okay.
They called in Tage Thompson and they called in someone else as the devil. They called them in for replacement as well because Brady is not on the ice. Brady Tkachuk did not make practice. So that's some more drama to the fire. So it adds to, but yeah, Quinn was called in, but is still hurt. So he is out.
So he's not going to play. That was the last I heard, but it was not likely. I say if he was good to go, just let him play.
Yeah.
I think they need, the next time around, they need to kind of like shore up, injuries and stuff like that and roster moves and all that other for these. I get why they're doing it this way. You're telling guys you have 2 weeks off. And then all of a sudden, like you have to pull them out of that. But I feel like you should have just a longer list than your normal roster. And if you have to go to that extended list, those guys are no, there's a possibility I might have to come out of my vacation to go play in this thing. But whatever, that's for another time. But for this game, even with those injuries, and those are some big injuries to Team USA, man, like they just seem to have no holes. And, you have offensive ability, you have great defensive ability, even without guys like Quinn Hughes. And of course, you're solid in net. And we knew this about them. So they are really what this to do and play a certain way. They are doing that to a T, where Team Canada, they're a fine team. Like they're great. They're a good team too. So can their goaltending hold up? That's what this is going to boil down to, is goaltending. And that's not breaking any mold here, because they have clearly the offensive ability and good defensive ability too. Can Jordan Binnington hold up is the question. I don't know.
And I'll tell you my prediction for this game.
Let's hear it.
the United States will win this game 7-4. Why? That's the 4th of July, baby. Play Freebird.
Oh my God. If that happens, you heard it here first. Wow. Honestly, I would love nothing more than this thing to go to overtime.
No,
That's really what I'm
you're
hoping for.
Sick person.
That would just be, I mean, the tension in that would be as thick as Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals. I would absolutely love that. So I threw it out to the subtext people for some predictions. Let me see if we got some over there. So this is Avs Fan Forever. It says, I'm thinking it's a scoring fest in the first until the end of the second and into the third when Canada takes it away for a 7-5 win.
Nope.
I don't see how 7 goals can be scored on Connor Hellebuck. I mean,
there can be on Jordan Binnington. That's why I said 7-4.
But people are probably throwing out, hey, you know, you always have postseason Connor Hellebuck. Although this is not the postseason, it is for, you know, all the marbles. So the prediction changes a bit if the injured return for the game or not. I actually see a USA win again if all who didn't play against Sweden are able to for the final. Yeah, I mean, it could be the injuries for the USA are so significant that that's kind of what turns the tide here.
Yeah, I can get
that. We got, who's this here? That's Mana Battlelax. Sorry, she's got 4 nations final. USA 4, Canada 3. She says it will go into overtime, and Eichel will tip it in. Hellebuck will have an amazing game, madam. You know who we don't root for over here on Locked On Avalanche, but do we root for him because it is the 4 Nations tournament?
That's going to be such a big problem if I have to get that as my U.S. jersey.
What is how are you deciding who gets the Shaggy Von Doom purchase?
It's probably going to be Brady Tkachuk, but I mean, if we have heroics by Eichel to win the whole thing, I'll be morally. Wow. It's going to be a moral. Okay. I'm going to have to struggle with that one.
Lisa says U.S. over Canada 3-2. Just plain and simple. Doesn't really give any context to it, but that's fine.
Thank you for not throwing overtime on there, Lisa.
Ethan, what's Ethan say? USA Freebirds take it 4-3 on a late game-winning goal by Jack Hughes.
Yes, give it to the devil.
There you go. And Ethan also says Taves will find the net as well. So, okay, fine with that. Is Ziggy got a prediction on here? He don't think he does. No, he doesn't. So,
if you don't give a prediction, that's a 7-4 prediction for
And I thought Vargar would give a prediction, but he has not yet. He has not chimed in. So, man, my head is like the U.S. is just playing so well right now, and Hellebuck is he's a difference maker. So I'm gonna say like a 3. I'll say overtime because I wanted to go to overtime. I will say 3-2 U.S. I think that will be the score, 3-2. Could go either way, but I'll say the U.S. takes it. What was yours? 7-4, right?
It's 4th of July, 7-4, baby.
I like that.
Can't do 1776 anywhere.
That'd be hilarious. All right, so we will be talking about how that all winds up on tomorrow's episode. So make sure to tune in for that. We're going to touch on the Avalanche because they're playing. You know, we got a 4 Nations tournament, but hey, 48 hours later, the entire Avalanche are back out on the ice. So we'll talk about this weekend coming up for the Avs. First, we're going to hear from Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with a fiber and better for you unsaturated fats that helps keep you feeling fuller longer. And we talked about this before. Did you say you were the shell guy or the not shell guy?
Yeah, I was a shell guy. But
You are the shell guy.
I like the convenience of hearing the unshelled version of these pistachios, and it has piqued my interest.
Yes, and that's what because I am the no shell variety. You are the in shell variety, and they have both, so they satisfy either whatever you like. If you like the crack in the shell, you can get the in shell. If you want the simple, you just pop them, no shells. You can go that way too. So get Kraken and get snackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Just visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more today. All right, so after the Four Nations gets wrapped up on Thursday, you got Friday off, and then it's back at it on Saturday. The Avs with back-to-back on the road Saturday, both division games, Saturday in Nashville, Sunday in St. Louis. What are we thinking here, sir? Like, I really don't feel like there's going to be like this rust thing. I know a lot of people, when you have time off, I get it. But if there is any, I feel like it's going to be such a short-term rust, and the guys will get kind of right back into the flow, because at this stage in the season, you're into a routine, and I think you're mid-February, so you only have a couple months left in the season. Like, I don't feel like taking 2 weeks off will make it seem like this was like a full off season, and you need a full game to get back into. Maybe you do for your first couple shifts, but I just feel like the muscle memory right now and this part of the season is just there, and I'm expecting good hockey for this game. I really am.
What I'm really expecting and what I'm going to be looking forward to are a couple things, 3 things in general. You're expecting the depth to step up. You got your rest, and your heroes are coming back a little tired, a little beaten. You have to carry them, like that scene from Spider-Man. So you're going to expect a little of that. Wedgwood, I would put him in versus Nashville. And I would have Blackwood versus a tired and beaten and hopefully defeated Jordan Bennington on the second one. And then, I really want those matchups. And you really want to carry the momentum from here on out, because we talked about this is the playoffs, quote unquote, going into the Four Nations. Now you're playing to the trade deadline. So, hey, everybody, your job's up. So play for it.
Yeah. I don't know if you were paying attention to practice today for the Avalanche, but Scott Wedgwood got hit in the region no man wants to get hit in with a puck, and I guess was down on the ice for quite a while.
It happened to a nicer guy.
Yeah. So I don't think that's going to keep him out for any amount of time, but you feel for the man. Yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting question on who starts first, because it's like you want to get Mackenzie Blackwood out there right away, but like it's almost like, what's an extra day going to hurt? Typically, you play your better goalie on the first day, because that's when all of your guys are fresh. Because on the second day, they're obviously a little bit more tired, so you're putting a little bit more emphasis on who's in starting goal. I don't know. I could see it going either way. My guess is Blackwood starts the first one, but I completely see where you're coming from, especially with Nashville just not being able to do anything right this year. I was looking at their stats.
Don't do that. It's bad. It's bad for your health.
Well, the odd thing is, like, you have who you expect towards the top. Guys like Philip Forsberg, 54 games played, 53 points, basically a point per player guy, and that's who he is. Marcia Selt is second at 54 games played, 44 points. Roman Josi, 50 games played, 37 points. Do you know what his plus minus is for the season?
It's got to be like minus 20 something.
Yeah, minus 25.
Yeah,
that is 4th worst in the league. And I know, the whole plus minus thing, I bring this up every time we talk about plus minus. We don't talk about it a ton because it is one of those iffy stats. It doesn't tell an entirety of a story, but when you're minus 25, that is telling a story.
Yep.
Something is going on when Roman Josi's on the ice. Goals are being scored against Nashville.
Yeah.
And so then that just goes down to what's the goalie situation looking like for them. and Saros is he's at 899 save percentage. That 900 save percentage that we all want to focus in on. He's basically right there. Goals against 2.95. His record is just 11, 23, and 0. It's just that just doesn't compute to me. He's just a really good goalie, but something is just not right in Nashville. I don't know if it's system, if it's just the guys that they brought in just are obviously not working. But that's why I feel like you play Blackwood in this game, because keep them reeling. And I know like they're not going to make the playoffs, but they want to. They're in the mode of we need to have a good end of the season so we can carry something into next year. And they're going to start with that game 1 right after Four Nations. Keep them in the mud. You know what I mean? So we'll see.
What better way? You got to test out Wedgwood. We haven't seen him in quite some time.
He'll play one of them for sure. Yeah.
And I think honestly, like Blackwood versus Bennington is a little bit of a better matchup. St. Louis is playing for a little bit more. Like they're trying. Nashville is trying to sell, and it would be even sweeter of a victory if you beat them up if you beat Nashville with your backup goalie.
And your comment about Bennington, playing all these games in the Four Nation tournament, are they? Is that their first game back against the Avalanche? Let me see. I'm looking up their.
Oh no, I think I have the St. Louis Blues blocked on all my social media.
Here we go. They are playing. Let's see. We got February. So they're a back-to-back as well, sir. Yeah, they're playing home and home back-to-back. They're playing Winnipeg.
No,
They're playing Winnipeg on Saturday, and then they're playing the Avalanche on Sunday. So you might get their backup, because I'm sure they'll want to play Bennington against the Jets unless they want to give them a day off. This will be interesting for goalies for this weekend. Both teams on a back-to-back. Wow.
Fun stuff.
Okay. All right. We'll see how this all pans out. But I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, the guys that are playing for the Avalanche and the Four Nations, they're gonna be as fresh as can be. But I'm expecting like the guys that have not played to really kind of pick it up really early on, and I think you're going to have some fine hockey. One of those guys that we thought was going to come back right after the Four Nations tournament might not be. He's one guy that we're going to give a grade to here in a second, and we're going to do that next. Okay, we got a few more mid-season, quote-unquote, mid-season grades to go. And we're going to start with Val Nichushkin. I know it's not 100% alphabetical, but I wanted to start with him on this one anyway, because we thought he was going to be back first game right after the Four Nations. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen. It didn't sound like it was too far in the future, but whatever this injury is maybe lingering around longer than they wanted it to. And it didn't sound like he was going to be back for the first game against Nashville. We'll have to see, but regardless, stats for the year, kind of thin, 21 games played. But when he's out there, he does what he's supposed to do. In those 21 games, he's got 11 goals, 6 assists for 17 points. He's a +6. Time on ice is 1938. I mean, we've talked about him a lot for a lot of different reasons, Kyle. The good is when he's there, he's such a dynamic player and such an important part of this team. How much do you ding him for the injuries? I mean, it's an injury. It's not a suspension. I mean, early in the year it was. But once he came back, now he's injured again, and now he's missing more games. But I'm interested to see what you got for him.
He's perplexing, to say the least. He's starting to have a schedule like Santa Claus. He has his days that he comes back, and then he's gone for the entire year. I'm giving him, and it probably should be lower, but I'm giving him honestly a flat C.
Okay.
Because
And what is it? Is it the lack of games played? Is it you were suspended to start the season?
Yeah, it's like it's all of that. Like,
Yeah.
your production's nice. It's not otherworldly. Like, we've seen you be a literal force, and we had to wait because you were suspended. Like, that's ding number one.
Sure.
Injury, ding number two. And again, that's not something outside of the realm of possibilities on the Avalanche. We're used to injuries, but when it's Nuke and you're just hearing all these sliding Landeskog timelines, like your eyebrows furrow and raise, and you're just like, what's going on? It's like, it shouldn't be, but it is. And then you're just like, whenever he comes back, and I'm tired of saying whenever Nichushkin comes back, because you don't know how long he's going to stay around. Will he even be a part when the team's in the playoffs? Like, it's just not something you could build a hockey team off of.
Yeah, I get all that. But I can't lower his grade for things that have not happened yet. Like, for, and we're all looking forward to the playoffs and seeing what happens and that's going to be, he's going to be looked at under a microscope. But I don't want to give a grade based on the future.
Well, even now he's not there.
Right. And that's completely understandable. Like, so, but it's from an injury, and it's tough to, again, maybe bring it down a lot for something that he can't control. It was an injury, and every player is susceptible to injury. Where you can ding him the most is to start the season and the suspension. You can, and that is fair game, and you can lower his grade as much as you want, as much as you feel like you want, because of that. So I don't put so much emphasis on this injury because it's an injury. He's out longer than anybody really wants him to be, which is just a little bit curious as to why. Well, I mean, it's just, I thought he was a faster healer. I don't know. But yeah, I'm with you on the C thing. If he played more games, he'd probably be in somewhere in the B range, because he's on a good trajectory with games played to points. It's close to a point per game. It was 21 games played, 17 points. Like, he's so important to this team. But it hurts.
He's not a part of the team.
Right. It hurts when you're not there. So sure, you can bring him down a little bit if you want to, for the injury. I don't like doing that so much, but you absolutely can do it for the suspension. It's
just additional part of the narrative.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I lumped that in.
That's fair game. Next, let's get to Logan O'Connor. I'm going way out of order for them. I'm saving Marty for the last one. So Logan O'Connor on the season, 57 games played, 6 goals, 8 assists, 14 points. He is a -8 on the season, plays just about 15 minutes of ice time per game. He's just one of the fan favorites. He, does everything you need him to do. We talked about him a lot in yesterday's episode. He has his own bourbon now, or he's named after a bourbon.
Yeah, he does.
But what do you got for Logan?
And this one's it's difficult, but I'm giving him a B-.
Okay.
Just because LOC, and like I hear, and I think Zach even mentioned like how much of a fondness he has for LOC.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned that yesterday, and I hear that a lot. Like, he's a lot of Avs fans' favorite player. And you could see the monumental step he has if he ever finds that extra gear. It's just like I haven't seen him hit that. Like, you remember last year when he had that shorthanded streak? Like, he had that magic, he had that confidence, he had that aura about him. And he just hasn't found that this year. Like, he'll pop up here and there, but he has so much potential for being a just night in, night out A+ player. And he just hasn't hit it yet. So I'm giving him a B- just because he hasn't found his footing yet on this year's squad.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm giving him the same thing, a B- for what he brings to your team. And I'm close to getting there we were talking yesterday about Josh Manson. It's just, this is who he is. Like, you are you done expecting more from Josh Manson? Maybe, like, and that's okay. Like, if that's who you are, I can live with that. And for Logan O'Connor, it's like, what he gives you is great. He's a workhorse. He's their best penalty killer. And at times you see like these flashes of this offensive ability where it's like, man, you should have way more points than you really do. And he's taken a little bit of a hit this year. So his last 3 years are really, what kind of has made Logan O'Connor. So in 2021, 22, he had 24 points, followed that up with 26 points. And then last year had 25 points. And last year was his highest career in goals with 13 goals and 12 assists. So usually it was flipped. He had more assists. He almost doubled up on assists compared to goals. This year he's a little bit, pulling back to even with 6 goals, 8 assists. So it seems like he's taken a little bit of like regression when it comes to putting up points. And I always say with the depth guys, well, it's like, well, it's not really what they're there for. But for him, I feel like he can be that guy.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, like he hasn't taken that next, like, I'm not saying he should go like the next Nazem Kadri step from scoring 45 to 83 or whatever Kadri had for that year. But I'm waiting for him to do that. He's middling in the 20s, and I'm waiting for him to get into pushing the 40s. And is he just not that guy? And if he's not, and he continues to give you what you're getting from him, fine. I am happy with that. I will be happy with that because he gives you maximum effort every time he's out there. And I'm okay. But I just feel like, and you watch him and you're like, man, like you have the speed, you have, the defensive ability, and the offensive ability is there. He just doesn't seem to be able to break through on a consistent level. And if he could, that would just make this team so much better.
It's the conversation that always surrounded Bo Byram, Alex Newhook, and even Georgie when he was here. Like, that next level is there. Just you keep looking for that and ignoring these long stretches where you're just not getting it. And with LOC, it's a little frustrating because his next gear that and you've seen flashes of is so spectacular. It's just becoming more of a rarity instead of the expected. And that's what's frustrating.
Yeah. So, but he's one of the favorites.
Yep.
Love watching the guy. So I'm happy they got him locked up for a while. And then last but not least, we are doing Marty Necas just because we want to. And even though he's only got 8 games under his belt in an Avalanche sweater, he does have 9 points in those 8 games, 4 goals, 5 assists. He's a +1. Here's the interesting part of it, Kyle. His average time on ice in those 8 games right now, 23:03. His career high is 18:25. So he's playing 5 minutes over what he's used to. And he did 18:25, and last year with Carolina, he was 18:05. Every other year is sub 18 minutes time on ice. It's good in the early going right now for Nisha, but could that be guys like Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon and Rantanen when he was here, Devon Taves, they've been doing the long ice time, the high ice time for a few years now. So I feel like they are conditioned for it. I'm not saying Marty Necas is out of shape or anything like that, but could he hit a proverbial wall with the time on ice, because this is a lot more than he's ever done.
And the thing with Necas, I don't think, and up to this point, I'm not going off his Carolina.
Nothing
Carolina.
Just the 8 games. Yep.
I'm telling you, he's an A+ guy. And I'm not scared to say it. And
No.
Go ahead, come after me. I don't have feelings. Y'all don't care about him. But like, he's an A+ guy. It went from the Mikko trade to 2 days later. I really like this Necas guy. Like, he's a difference maker and completely changed the attitude and the speed of the team. And he's always there. He's never really taking shifts off where you're like, man, that wasn't his best. No, he's always on. And it's like you said, he's averaging like 23. Like, you feel like there's not enough. Like, you want to see more. And with a team of Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, and all the other stars, to ask like this new guy feels like he's been a part of the team forever, and you want to see more of him too. Like, that takes a lot. That's a huge role to fill, and he's made his own role. He didn't fill the shoes of Miko. He planted the flag of Marty Necas.
Yeah, and it's, again, only going off of 8 games, but in those 8 games, he's been A+.
Yep.
Absolutely. And not only in, the production that he's giving you, he needed to come in and replace one of the all-time greats for the Avalanche, and a fan favorite, and a guy that nobody wanted to leave. And you're coming in here and you need to replicate what he's done, and he's done it.
Mm-hmm.
So he has quickly turned the mindset of how this trade went down and the return the Avalanche got for it. Because if he started out the way Miko's starting out in Carolina, we would be, not that people aren't already calling for Chris McFarland's head, they would be, actively doing it in the streets, rioting for it.
Yep.
And the fact that he came in and calmed everybody down and said, I got this. I got the speed. I can hang with these guys, and put up numbers to boot. It's an A+. It's an A+ for these 8 games, and I don't really see how you can give him anything less than that.
And to come in here and get Nathan McKinnon's respect off just immediately, that takes a lot too. He is not an easy cookie to crumble.
Yeah. Over on Subtext, we got some people chiming in for these grades. LOC, this is from Avs fan forever. LOC solid A. Nichushkin a B-. He gives him down from a solid A. If he could just stay healthy and remain available, he'd be an A all day. Yeah, totally agree with that. And Necas gave a B. Come on, Avs fan. Come on now. He says because his play has been amazeballs, but it's relatively small sample size as well. Okay, I mean, if you want to say, fine.
Yeah, he's buying low. I get it.
I get it. So you got Madam Battleaxe here. Nichushkin, a D. Gives him a D.
So I like you, Madam Battleaxe.
Marty Necas, an A-. And I don't see one for LOC. Maybe she missed LOC was given. So we'll just give him an A+, just for the heck of it.
Don't do that.
Great
on
curve.
Girl.
Yeah.
A+.
Yeah. Let's see. So Lisa says Logan O'Connor a B. Val Nichushkin an incomplete. She says, "Can I do that?"
The best.
I think she's a teacher too, so we'll allow it. And Marty Necas an A for from Lisa. So good job. Ethan LOC a B. Val Nichushkin a B, and Necas an A. So very good. And again, no pluses or minuses from Ethan. Lisa on the last hand said yes, and she did correct me. I think she said that she did not do pluses and minuses because she is a teacher and they don't do pluses and minuses in her school. Is that a thing,
bro? I'm learning.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. Charles LOC B-. Val B+. When he plays, he's a beast, but misses a lot of time, so he doesn't really want to ding him for the missed time. Okay. And Marty an A-. Okay, so there's that. Coy LOC solid C, not great but not terrible. And Coy gives an incomplete to Val as well.
Understandable.
So there's two incompletes, and then I think the text message cut off for him or something like that because it says Necas and then nothing. So we're going to give Necas another A+ because we're just going to do that.
Probably composing a song.
And finally, Vargar. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Vargar. This was from yesterday. Vargar gave his ones from yesterday, so I don't have his, but I do have Adam, LOC B, Val, and Marty incompletes.
I can understand.
I do. I don't like it, but I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, I mean, if we were given on an 8-game stretch, we really evaluated Joe Colburn back in the day on an 8-game stretch and kept him around for a while.
Yeah. So I think we set this up perfectly, sir. I think we have 3 more names to go, which we will do on tomorrow's episode. Don't tell us we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, we might be okay.
Yeah, it totally was not planned that way. It just happened to work out like that. So we'll just make believe that it was totally intentional.
Yep.
But we will be back tomorrow. Definitely be talking about the Four Nations final and how all of that went down. So make sure to tune in for that one. But for this one, thank you for making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow, where you made it through another 24 hours. Sidney Crosby's that much closer to being a Colorado Avalanche.
Mucho bueno.